Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. The case that I'm going to be looking into today is the one of Sigrid Stevenson, and it is a suggested case to look into. I found it very interesting actually. So let us jump right in. Sigrid Miller Stevenson was born on the 24th of January in 1952. Two parents, Peter Cooper Stevenson and Barbara Jean Smith Stevenson. She was actually their first child and would be raised in the city of Livermore in San Francisco. Peter, who was a father, actually met Barbara, her mother, and then they got married in July of 1946, and then they went on to have Sigrid. When she was 3 years old, her parents then welcomed their second child, another daughter that they called Sylvia. It is very much said that Sigrid and her family were Sigrid's family was very private. She had a very sort of private upbringing. And it was also said that her father actually introduced her to her love of music. So Sigrid would go on to absolutely adore music. He played the guitar. He introduced her to the guitar at a very young age, and it became very clear very quickly that music was definitely for Sigrid, even though she was introduced to the guitar primarily. She would go on to love playing the piano. And she even went ahead and took lessons as a young child. And eventually that carried on through her life. And she wanted to, when she became an adult, she actually wanted to be a pianist. And show other children her love of the piano and sort of spread the love for it and just the admiration for it. It was said that Sigrid was a sort of, I don't know, her personality kind of clashed what I feel about it anyway. She was described as very much a loner, would often prioritize sort of music over socials, but she was also very friendly and she had this massive zest for life. Now, she never really cared what other people thought, and at the time, this case, so she was born in the 50s, this case happened in the 70s. People would actually describe her as using cruel words, which obviously we wouldn't do nowadays, but a lot of people said that she was weird and things like that, which is not a very nice word. I haven't used that word to describe her. That's just how people described her at the time. Some people said that she was kind of, what's that word? Extravagant? Extraordinary? No, I don't know what the word is. Never mind. Sigrid loved to go on long walks. She loved to write books, do artwork. She also had a notebook that went everywhere with her. And it was said that even though she was very much alone and preferred her own company, she was very overly friendly as well, and that was dangerously so. Especially around those days, people would hitchhike and things like that, which is so very dangerous, as you well know. And she would hitchhike quite a lot and just tell people everything about herself. You'll see as we get into the case. I remember that word. It was eccentric, not extraordinary. Eccentric. That's how other people described her, which is more of a kind of word. But then other people was like, no, she's just plain weird, which was one of her teachers, I believe. I think I read. So that's not very nice, but yeah. So basically, Sigrid decided that she was going to go to college. She decided that she wanted to get a master's in playing the piano, and also that maybe she would like to pursue a backup as becoming a teacher. Her parents tried to encourage her to go to social groups and things like that, but Sigrid was very much one-minded. Like, she knew what she wanted and she went for it. She went to Riverside, which she graduated in 1974, and then between 74 and 76 there's not a lot of sort of information on what Sigrid actually did. Seems like she did a bit of traveling, taught some music, you know, just general things of what she normally did, but there's just sort of no real record of it, I suppose. Sigrid set her eyes on Trenton State College, which was really well known for its music, kind of thing, its lessons and its teachings in music and things like that. So that is where she decided to go. And like I said, she had some friends. It was said at the time of this case occurring, so Sigrid actually lived with, I believe, one of her teachers, like renting out a room. Then that same year, she decided that she didn't want to rent out that room anymore. And so there's a lot of sources that are different in this case, and people can't figure out what's actually what. But it was said that after this, she went on to rent a room with volunteer firefighter and his family. and he has never been named, like, it's never come forward who this guy actually was. Sigrid was 25 years old when her life was cut short, and this happened on the 4th of September in 1977, when she was found murdered in Kendall Hall, which is a building within the campus that she was in. That night, she had previously, she'd been traveling, okay? So she went out traveling, she went out hitchhiking all over up Canada and things like that, which is dangerous, but she did it and she got back safe. She ended up trying to get into the house that she was renting, obviously, and they were away at the time, but they had gotten delayed in coming back, so she couldn't get in. Whether she expected them to be back and because they were delayed, they couldn't let her in, basically, or she didn't have her own key, she forgot a key, locked stuff out. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but that's basically what happened. So she had nowhere to stay, so she decided that she was going to stay at Kendall Hall. Now, Kendall Hall held a piano, and obviously Sigrid loved to play the piano. Now, during the day, it was used by students, yada, yada, yada. People doing plays and things like that. But during the nighttime, it was supposed to be shut down and it was supposed to be locked up. It was an old piano. It wasn't really worth much money. It even had this block that you needed to either balance it or prop up the lid or something. It was a 2x4 piece of wood that they used to do so. But Sigrid would essentially break in all of the time, because even though it was locked and you needed a key, the locks were absolute garbage. They were shite. If you forced it, pushed it with enough force and swift enough, it would just swing right open. And then you could close it again and it would act as though it was locked again by all intents and purposes. Sigrid found this out. She would often break into Kendall Hall so that she could play the piano into all hours of the night, because it's what she loved. And she did that. She's been told off on numerous times by the security there because obviously she wasn't supposed to be there. So yeah, basically this was going to be her plan. At the time, at this day, this night in particular, they were having a play at Kendall Hall, and it was a play called JB. She'd been invited by some of the actors who she knew. So she goes on down and she watches it. People saw her there. People spoke to her and she was talking to the cast, to the crew. And she was very upfront and open, telling them that she had been locked out, she had nowhere to stay, and she was going to stay at Kendall Hall that night. And I believe it was like below the stage, so like you could go into maybe the basement or something like that. I don't really know. But yeah. And then one of the last entries in her journal later that night, so she must have actually gone to sleep while everyone was still taking down the set, because she was complaining that she could hear them banging and clanging and couldn't sleep. And she wanted to sleep because she wanted to get to sleep early, so that she could play piano early before the security guards would come at like 11 a.m. and catch her. So she had to be out by 11 a.m. pretty much. On this night in particular, a security officer had walked past and seen Sigrid's bike. It was chained up outside. It had been there for like 2 days, I think. And he was wondering what on earth was going on. So he enters, and what he finds inside is the most horrific crime scene. He goes up to where the piano is, and there is just a trail of blood, and that is where he finds Sigrid's body, and she is naked and unrecognizable because she had been bludgeoned to death, covered in blood, absolutely covered, splattered all up the music sheets everywhere. Now, her body was actually under a piano cover, like a white piano cover, but this was a grand piano, and it wasn't the piano that she was playing. It wasn't for that. They had another area where they had this really expensive piano, like 10 grand, and that was where the cover had come from, which there's a lot of speculation around this cover, because if it was in a different piano that was fully locked up, how the heck did it end up there covering over Sigrid? So when they went to identify her, they couldn't actually do it by her face. They ended up identifying her. She had her ID on her, but like they only could identify her by her hair, because she'd been bludgeoned that much. Just absolutely horrific. And it was thought, because she had some injuries on her elbow and her chest, it was thought that maybe she was playing the piano at the time. Somebody came in and hit her with a blunt object. She fell backwards onto her elbows and on the floor, and this person then carried on hitting her. Now, she actually was found with blood on her feet and mud on her feet, which I don't really know where that came from, to be quite honest. Now, it has been speculated as to whether Sigrid was playing the piano naked. But then a lot of people have said, why would she do that? Because the locks are so easy to break into, and she knew that. So why would she play the piano naked? Unless she really didn't care and just thought nobody would come in at this time. I don't know. I don't believe that she was essayed at all, to be fair. So, did the person undress her, whoever murdered her? Or was Sigrid, in fact, playing the piano naked? I don't know. They found her backpack and things there. They didn't really find any evidence, to be fair. And all they had was this backpack, which later on, a psychic comes in. Psychic. Yeah. I don't believe in them. So a psychic came in and he was saying that he needed to touch something of hers. They just hand over the backpack. That's how botched up this police job was. Obviously, it was in the 70s, though. So he's getting all his fingerprints and stuff all over it. Honestly, I have no idea. When they actually did the autopsy as well, I believe she had like 15 wounds sort of to her head. And it was confirmed that she had multiple skull fractures and things like that. And that is obviously her cause of death. But yeah, she was found under this piano cover. This piano cover, as I've already said, came from a different building, which it was really strange because somebody saw it there a week prior. They confirmed that on this grand piano. And how it ended up there, we don't know. People have speculated that there was only certain people with the keys to this place. You needed 2 keys. You needed a key to get in and a key to get into a room with the piano. Those locks were apparently sound. You could not get in them. And I honestly believe that because how Sigrid was, she didn't care. And she was getting into that piano room. So if she could play a bigger, more expensive piano, I honestly believe, in my opinion, that she would have done everything that she could to get into that one to play the better piano. But she didn't because I believe she couldn't. I believe the locks on that were much better and they couldn't get in. And a lot of other people around the time and people around Sigrid have also said that too. And I genuinely believe that. So this cover has come from behind 2 locked doors, pulled out into a piano that was basically worthless and falling apart. And then it was used to cover up a body. People have speculated that. So because of this reason, only a few people had the keys, like security staff, the police on campus, things like that. So there was a lot of speculation around that. Obviously, any staff like janitors and things like that. I also saw somebody mention that there was a janitor in question, but the police never really looked into him or something. I don't really know. But yeah, this cover has got a lot of speculation around it because there's also the question as to whether it was somebody had used it as bedding, because a lot of people broke into Kendall Hall, I believe, and they would say there a lot. So did somebody use it as like something to sleep on and it was already there, and then when they murdered Sigrid, they found it and tried to bundle up her body in it and move it, but then they decided to scrap that idea because, I mean, there's blood everywhere anyway, so it's not like they're going to clean all that up, which they didn't. I really don't know. I'd like to know your opinion on this white cover, because if they'd come in, killed Sigrid, didn't really have a plan for, I need to get rid of a body, they've then unlocked that place, unlocked the other place, gotten this piano cover, brought it back without being seen by anyone, and then wrapped a body on it. It doesn't really make much sense to me, to be honest. They also never found the murder weapon, which I genuinely believe that it was that piece of wood that was 2x4, sorry, that was used around the piano for whatever reason it was there, because that was never found and she was hit with a blunt force object, so I genuinely believe that that was it. But obviously, I don't know. That is just my opinion, fully my opinion. The murder weapon was never found. So police worked tirelessly to try and find Sigrid's killer. The investigation was very flawed, like I said. But they did try. They looked at evidence. Well, they didn't really have any testimonials. They did numerous interviews with everyone, but they didn't really have any forensic evidence, and it kind of put a massive stall on the case. And that's really it. Nobody was ever caught for it. We still don't know who did it. We're talking all these years later, and it's still unsolved. Her parents never spoke out publicly about it. They grieved in peace. They have since passed away, never knowing what happened to their daughter, which is absolutely heartbreaking. And all we can really hope for now is that if they did manage to gather some DNA and things in the case, that with the technology improvements we have now, maybe we can find something, because I genuinely really hope that this person, even if they are no longer alive, that they are caught in the eyes of named and shamed, and we finally find out who did this to her, because her life was cut so short. She was such a lovely person who had such the aspirations, and she never got to fulfill any of them because she was brutally murdered, and it is horrific. But there's just so many questions in this case. But yeah, that is the end of it. Let me know what you guys think. I would love to know. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.